Hello and welcome to MMB Airgun Review. Today we're going to go over some, different techniques on leveling your scope to your air rifle. A lot of people use different techniques. I'm going to show you what I do. I'm not going to say which ones are right and which ones are wrong, but I will tell you what is right for me. Basically, when we level a scope, we want to make sure our canter is not off. And this scope has been leveled already, but we want to make sure that it's precise. And what exactly are we leveling it to? Well, we're leveling it to our receiver. Because if our scope is not level with our receiver, then our trajectory is going to change significantly as our yardage goes farther out. As far as canter goes, you need those crosshairs lined up precisely with your target, especially if your target has a grid pattern, and it makes for more precise shooting. So, where do we start? Well, a lot of you have mounted scopes, I'm sure, and you are not hitting accurately as you think you should be. And there's a couple ways we can check exactly what's going on. So let's dive into that today. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get your gun on a surface, put your PCP on a surface or a brake barrel, what have you. And you're going to want to first put your scope on, set it down, adjust your canter, make sure it's left and right and leveled with the receiver. Your receiver base is here. You can take this, you can take a simple level, lay it on your receiver, and let's just do this. Let's just start from scratch here, and let's do that. Okay, we're going to dismount this scope. Okay, and I'll keep orientation of where exactly it goes. And we're on that groove. Okay. So the first thing we're going to want to do is make sure that the rifle itself is level, because we need a base point to start, if that makes sense. Ideally, you want to level it to the receiver, and we're going to get a little deeper as we go. So we're going to lay this across the receiver, and as you can see, I don't know if you can see or not, but our bubble level is not level. So what I'm simply going to do, since this is in the vise, we need it to be level. So I'm going to turn up my turret on my gun rest until it is perfectly in the middle. And there we go. So now we have a baseline to establish the scope level. Scopes normally, now the canter already has been adjusted on this. So, but typically the top of your turret, ideally on a well-made scope, will be perfect level, so it's fine to go by. So we're going to simply pull this off. We are going to put our scope back on where it was, because, well, that's the spot that I would like it. And I am going to put these back on. Now, the key is, don't level it. If you want to make sure it's level, and you don't have to use any shims, tighten it to your torque specs that's recommended by your rings. I'm just doing this as an example. And we're going to lay our level right on top of the turret, if you're able to do that. And we're going to see if the level matches, which in this case, it does, matches the receiver. Now keep in mind that any variance, even slight, has an effect. But this one, obviously, the scope rings are good because we are in exact position as the top of the rail of the receiver. Okay, that's fine and that's great, but there can be other problems. So we know the scope is leveled to the top of the receiver, but what if your barrel is not level with the receiver? And that seems to be the case on a lot of PCP rifles, because it doesn't make a difference if your receiver rail is level if your barrel is not level. Makes sense? Because we are assuming that the barrel is level. Now, obviously, if you have a bent barrel or the receiver is machined off, you will have an issue. So first we're going to check it with the shroud on and see if it's level. And right away, we are noticing that the bubble level, now this is resting in this, but there's not enough pressure to make a difference here. So even if I raise this up, we are noticing now I'm going to level this in, And this is what I mean about shrouds when I talk about why a shroud can change your trajectory, because it's undue force on the end and on the base. So now we're perfectly in level here, but when we go back to the scope is out of level. So how can we change that? Well, one way is to loosen up the end of your receiver. And let's bring this back into level, perfect level. There we are. And we know now that the scope is level with the receiver. And now let's place this on the barrel shroud. And just the simple act of me loosening the end cap to the barrel shroud has put this into level, which means the barrel shroud is causing the barrel to not be level. And this is something that I like to point out with a lot of different rifles. And when I say that most rifles perform well, not only due to the vibrational frequency, but due to, well, the inadequacies of barrel shrouds. We think of a barrel shroud as being just, well, something simple to go on over it and make it look pretty in this case, because it really serves no other purpose, because it's putting undue stress. I'm going to tighten this. And what we'll notice right away, once I tighten it, my bubble level goes off. Not a lot, but it goes off. But now, let's loosen it a little bit. And this is the variances. And let's actually turn the barrel shroud a little bit. And I can see right away that the bubble level has changed again, simply by turning the shroud, which means the shroud is not exactly engineered to the best quality. And I'm not knocking the gun at all. This seems to be the case with a lot of different PCP brands. So what I'm going to do now, because my goal, I want to make sure, what's the important thing? The barrel. So let's make sure the barrel itself, without the shroud, is safe and straight, okay? Now, like I said, I want to make sure I don't have any undue weight here that's going to affect the trajectory, and it does not. It does not flex simply because, well, the steel's decent. So what I'm going to do now is, since we got that off, we should be out of level, and I want to bring my scope back into perfect level. And like we said, that is perfect with the receiver. So I'm turning my turret. We are now dead on perfect level. Now we're going to go to the barrel once more with just the barrel. And what do we find? Perfect level. So this barrel itself is perfectly leveled with the scope and the rail to the receiver. That is what we want for sure. That's why this rifle shoots so good, because it's dead on and it's perfect with all three components: barrel, rail, and scope. That's what makes it shoot good. What makes it shoot off a little bit is when we simply add this shroud. Now, usually that's due to a, well, not so perfectly cut edge on the end, one end or the other of the shroud. And that can affect it no matter what way you put the shroud on. So ideally, they do shoot better without the shroud. Now, keep in mind on the Cattlemans, these shrouds do not have any sort of moderation. So there's really not a purpose. They will shoot better without the shroud. That's been proven time and time again. But we wanted to check level on this, and that's what we're doing. Okay, I'm going to go to another example, and this is going to be the example of what happens or why your accuracy will be off with a rifle if it's not perfect. So I'm going to take the M1 that I hope you guys have seen tested. And you'll note that the accuracy was not what the T2 was. And I'm going to demonstrate what I believe the reason is why. So let's dive into this for a second. And we're going to skip right past the shroud because we just showed you that. So I'm going to pull off the stock, if I can here. There we are. Pull the stock off. And we're going to sit this in our little vise here. I'm going to lower this if I can get this low enough. That's the next thing. I may have to do some adaptation here. We're not going to level this to the scope right now We're just going to see if the barrel is level with the top of the rail. And to do that, I may need some extra help. We're going to get this as low as I can right now. And if I have to, I will sit something underneath the base of the receiver here, which is, we can just use this for the time being. Okay, so once again, let's take our rail and level it. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see it. If you zoom in, you might be able to, but I can. We're going to take this and we're going to level this up till it's perfect. Okay. And that is right there is perfect. That's a perfect level. Now, I have done some things to this because, well, there is some issues with this rifle. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this level and we're going to place it on the barrel here. Okay. And then we're going to take it down to the end and we're going to place it here. And it's just as I suspected. The barrel is, the bubble is off. It is over to the left, which indicates that the barrel does move down and is not level, perfectly level with the receiver. So this is an issue. This is going to be an issue. You are going to be hitting low on target. And the farther you go out, the lower you are going to hit. It's going to increase dramatically, way more than it should. So if you're off a couple centimeters at the end of the barrel, or even a centimeter at 25 yards, and you dial it in for 25 yards, you're extremely off at 40 yards. You're extremely off at 50 yards. And at 100 yards, who knows? So obviously, this is the root of the shooting character, the problems that I was having with this 25. And it wasn't, I want to say it wasn't shooting bad. I mean, I was getting a 6-inch group at 100 yards. I mean, it was hitting a 6-inch target within the 6 inches. So realistically, probably about a 5-inch group within that with 5 shots repeatedly. But wasn't that accuracy that I was expecting as I was with the T2. And obviously, this is the reason. Now, another thing you can do to check your barrel straightness is you can take a magnetic level as such, now that we know this is leveled, and we can actually, if you have a smaller one, it works even better. Check your level, slide it down to see if your level changes. On this one, it's off the entire way, which means the barrel is straight, but the machine work on the inside of the receiver is just off just a touch, and that's all it takes. A little bit here equates to a lot here, if that makes any sense to you. And what I've noticed about this one also is they carried that over, and it actually is machined off with the air tube also. And if you've been following this channel, you'll know that this particular M1 was not meant for, well, it wasn't meant for sale. So this is one of the really early ones. Then hopefully this has been rectified because the T2, I assure you, is not. Now, if you're looking at your gun and you, now I have the shroud off of this, and I have the shroud off for a reason. And that's simply because if I don't have the shroud off, it will hit the end of this air tube, which is also a no-no because that causes it between each shot to shift one way or another with undue pressure because we have that round edge. And when you pull the trigger, the barrel might catch a little lower on one end than it does the other. So once again, this does shoot a lot better with shroud off. Now, that being said, you know, if you watch this channel, that I'm not a big fan of barrel bands. And let me make myself clear. I'm not a big fan of barrel bands on an accurately well-made PCP. Some PCPs, because a well-made PCP will always shoot better without one. But if you have one that needs some help, such as this one, well, we can put this right back into level with the use of a well-made barrel band, if that makes sense to you. While we are going to lose some vibrational frequency, and we're still not going to be 100% accurate, or as accurate as the gun is capable of with this barrel band, because we are changing frequency, we can put it back with a barrel band to make it level. If it's off a little bit, if it's off a lot, don't do it, because the characteristics are too tight and binding. But unfortunately, this one, with a barrel band, we could actually bring this back into level with the top of the receiver rail, if that makes sense. So there's where we're at with this one. So while it needs a little help, and a barrel band would definitely help this one, and I'm sure that the accuracy, and we'll come back and test that. We will test that. Hopefully Bob over at Bison Workshop has some good barrel bands printed up pretty soon. I'd like to get one of those from him, and we can actually test that theory out on this particular M1 to see if it, well, helps its grouping again, because I think it will. And if you haven't went over to Bison Workshop, check out his channel. He's a good guy. Does a lot of experience. He does a lot of 3D printing, making some really, really cool stuff. And he's doing it for the Cattleman. He's doing it for AEA product line. He's got some real cool stuff and some real cool ideas. And he's an all-around good guy, so I recommend his channel. Go over there, give him a shout, tell him M&B sent you. And I think you'll enjoy his content if you like just real-world content, because he's good. He's a good guy. So, and you might even, if you want to go to his website, he's got a website, go to his YouTube page, go to his website, see what he's got available. I mean, some of the stuff he comes out with surprises me. He made this beautiful spacers for the AEA, very tactical looking, and the barrel kind of sits in this nice groove, and it just really makes the AEA rifle look a lot better. He calls it a train. It's a train, and which is really cool. So make sure you check that out. I was impressed. Anyhow, I digress. So let's get this out of the way, and we're going to move on to another problem. I went to take my T2 to the range yesterday, and I was going to do a video on some accuracy tests. I wanted to make sure that was still shooting, well, tack driving like it was before. Pardon me. And I got it all set. Now, I have had this sitting. It's at 200 bar. So the air tank holds air. It's been sitting and sitting, and it holds air. And I think I might have bumped something I shouldn't have bumped, because we're going to dive into that now. So once again, that's why the air tube is off this, because I planned on doing this. And well, if you guys can learn along with me, why not? Let's pull. Okay, so my problem was 200 bar, loaded a pellet. Right now, this is actually double fed, which is why the air tube is off. And I double fed it because I had a little glitch. I put this in the gun vise and was going to do some precision shooting. And I loaded it. I cocked it. I loaded it. And I pulled the trigger, and there was nothing there. I said, maybe I didn't cock it back far enough. So I cocked it again, and sure as shit, I loaded another one right behind it. So I pulled the trigger again, and nothing there to pull. So I said, well, what's going on? So let's get inside of this right now. Okay, hopefully you can see that a little better. We're going to break in here. I'm going to pull the cover off. I want to see exactly what's going on here with the trigger. Now this was, last time I used this rifle was perfect, so it's been moved around a lot. I want to, I mean, it was flawlessly working, so I don't know what's going on, but let's get into here and see. Because curiosity, right? Okay, so let's pull this cover off and see what we got going on here. Well, there's a quick diagnosis right there. Look at this. So this is sitting in here. This is a piece of steel that is broken. This activates the trigger right there. And as you can see, that pivot point has actually snapped that off. Get out of there. Get out of there. There it is right there. Yeah. That's actually snapped right off, which is causing the trigger not to do anything. There's can't connect to anything. Okay, so I got it out. I don't pry on it. Just simply grab a pair of needle nose. And apparently it just sits in the recess and you just pull it out and this whole mechanism comes out with it. And as you can see, there is the brake on it. And I'm not sure how that happened. The only thing that I can think is that maybe that safety, which is connected, did that. But while we're in here, I want to make it work. So I'm going to grab, so I can show you at least, the M1. And it should be interchangeable. I've already pulled the cover off. So here it is here. And what I'm going to do is pull this out. There we go. See that pin pop out? There we go. There's that. Okay. So now we are out. And I'm going to set this to the side right here. And we are going to put this back in. There is a spring. And these two appear to be identical. There is a spring right here that is very important that needs to be pulled down when we get done underneath that mechanism. So let's see what we got here. We know this goes up. And I believe, let's see if we're doing this properly here. I believe, yes, this is how it's going to go. So this little tongue groove thing is where the spring catches. So let's see if we can start this. I'm going to put this back through. But before we do that, as long as we're in here, let's put some lubrication on it. Because we'll probably never have this opportunity to do this again. Hopefully, we don't have an opportunity to do this again. But what I want to do, and I actually want to put some in this groove here, and we'll put some here, and then we will put some here. Okay. I'm going to slip that through there. We'll slide this back down. We'll start it at least where it's supposed to go. That is our trigger mechanism there. Now, I'm going to lift this spring up a little bit here. As you can see, it's hard to get in there, but I'm going to lift it up. And while I'm lifting that spring up, I am going to get another Allen head in there and pull this back. This might not be the right way, but this is the way I'm going to do it. And make sure this goes into its spot and press the spring down where it goes. Now we have tension. So we're good. Simply push that back in and voila. I'm going to give it a little tap. And there we go. Actually, I got a better way to tap it. I have a little brass hammer. We'll make sure all these are seated, which they are. There we are. There's a little spring in here you do not want to lose. We are going to find our set screw if I can, and put that back together. Here's the other one. Here is our set screw that puts that spring tension on the safety itself. Make sure your safety's pushed in all the way. And so this is a first for me. But we're fixed. And that is the important part, right? That we are fixed. And we're going to pull the trigger and make sure that it will do what it's supposed to do. Of course, these little set screws are such a pain, but keep in mind this is under spring tension, so we want to bring this in. A little Loctite wouldn't hurt on here, I'm not going to lie, but it is under spring tension. So snug it. There we go. Should be good to go there. And now what we should have when we cock this is a rifle that will shoot, and there it goes. So we have a double feed, just so you know, that's still in there, so I'm going to have to clear that out. But now we got a working T2 again. Now we're going to lube up everything and make sure that everything is lubed, as I always say to do. But the good part is we have a working T2, and I'm curious if this plastic cover from the M1 fits on there. Yes, it does. It does fit on there. But you know what? We're not going to use that because I'm going to use the aluminum cover because, well, it's better, right? So let's put our screws back in. We now know... Oops, that's the wrong screw. Oh, look at that. So the screw size for the receiver is actually different for the M1 and the T2. So there's another difference right there. And like I said, that M1's an early production. They should be the same across the board now. So let's put this back together. Beautiful. And beautiful. We have already determined that the barrel and the scope are correctly set. And that is a T2 and a quick fix of that trigger mechanism. So yeah, I believe that maybe this got bumped just a little too hard or something happened. I know it didn't happen when I was using it because it worked flawlessly. It has worked flawlessly. I'm going to guess that it's something that's my fault that I did. And I'm going to leave it at that because I really don't believe that that this just broke from use. I'm sure something got hit harder than it should have. Thank you for watching M&B Airgun Review. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section below. And I'll be talking to you soon, guys. Thanks. Bye.